Welcome to the Clean Power Hour Live. Today is September 28th, 2023. I'm Tim Montague, your host. Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. But more importantly, tell your friends about the show. That's how we're growing the show, one interview, one news roundup at a time. We have a special guest today. Mr. Sean White is here, and my co host, John Weaver, of course, Mr. Commercial Solar Guy. Welcome to the show, John.
Timothy, I hope you're having a great time. I hope your body is fully recovered from going out to RE Plus. My shoulders hurt from sleeping on a train and really bad beds with big, giant, overly fluffed pillows. But otherwise, it was great. So
Yeah,
I hope you're healthy.
you took a 3 day train ride across the country.
I took
I'm
3 day
curious,
train ride.
is that something you recommend to other Americans?
Yes and no. 25% awesome, and that it was great to interact with people, meet new people, hang out with my friends. 50% it was cool. You got to see the country. It was sort of relaxing on the weekend. 25% it sucked because train tracks are crappy. They're all over. It's a slow ride. Um, and it's that we got to do better at our trains. Plus, the whole
It's
purpose.
not like a French train, right?
Well, I have no idea what a French train is, but it definitely
The
doesn't make me
French
think of.
trains tilt as they go around the corners.
Well,
And it's just like
our
super
trains tilt
smooth.
too. Ours tilt as well, but just a constant tilt every 12 seconds. Um, and so it was cool. But the key thing is, it wasn't nearly as clean energy. And we can go over the numbers if you want. It wasn't nearly as clean energy as we thought it was. It actually emitted more CO2 per rider than taking an airplane. So there's that
What?
27% more CO2. We'll go over the math before the end of the show. But when
That
you're
bites.
flying high in an airplane, apparently because we're releasing stuff up high, you multiply the CO2 actually emitted by 1.9,
Yeah.
and that makes the airplane have more of a climate effect, which
Mm.
is a different thing than CO2. But more CO2 was emitted, which totally confused us and then made us all do really hard work and write a good article and learn some stuff. So so positive. It was definitely positive. As a professional, you should ride the damn train. As a person who wants to see the countryside and make it a long trip, like a 3 week trip across the United States, awesome. Just, don't plan on sleeping on the train too much because it's tough. But otherwise, it was great. I liked hanging out with Christian and Peter Kelly. And it was just good people. And we met Jake from KC, who's going to a rock concert and wants to be a rocker in LA. And I hung out with John, who's a religious guy. He's not Amish, and he's not the other group that are in the Midwest that start with the letter M. But just had a great conversation. He's got 6 kids between the age of 5 months and 9 years.
Mennonite?
Mennonite, but he's not a Mennonite. There we go. Not a
Oh,
Mennonite, not an Amish. But he got 6 kids, so it was great to meet that guy and his wife. So it was a good trip. Just, realize it takes 3 days
they were
versus
taking
six
the train
hours.
for religious purposes?
They were going to Mexico for medical help
Oh,
because, of course, in the U.S., medicine is 3 times more expensive than the rest of
yeah,
the world. That's my hypothesis. I don't
yeah,
explicitly know, but
probably.
good time. It was a good time. Mennonites. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Just in case anybody's worried, Mennonites.
So
There we go.
we're gonna give our listeners a roundup of RE
Yeah.
Plus, the 40,000 person strong renewable energy conference that happened 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas. And but Sean White, give us an update on yourself. What have you been up to in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, I've just been recovering from that RE Plus hangover, and even though I wasn't drinking at all, just it's really draining with all the Las Vegas carpets that take you in circles and try to get you stuck in front of slot machines and all that kind of stuff. And then trying to find my first booth there was quite a trick, going through different floors up and down. I think they just purposely try to get you lost, and that's how they make money in Las Vegas, is getting you lost in certain places.
Yep,
And
for
I heard
sure.
I heard a lot of that, but got I got to hang out at your booth, so that was kind of fun. We were even watching it for you while you went and did something really important, and that may or may not have
And
involved
my stuff
alcohol.
was
I don't
still
know.
there when I got back, so you did
Yeah.
a good job guarding my
I,
recording equipment.
I know what we were going to do though is I was going to hide your microphones and then put a little sign that said microphones $1, and and put a few
Yeah, that
bucks
was
in a
fun.
jar.
We did a recording.
Yeah.
We did a recording. I did a bunch of recording at RE Plus. Unfortunately, the one you and John and I did was a fail. The video failed. The audio is still there, and we might release that. I'm debating about
Right.
that. I've also thought about making an animation using an AI, using our voices, but that's more of a process. So we'll see. But
I'm sure it was like the bad guys, like maybe the fossil fuels and the other podcast shows
yeah,
got
somebody
together and
sabotaged the cameras
pirated it.
for our episode.
Yeah.
I would say,
Definitely.
actually, gentlemen, the the depth of us and the breadth of us was so significant that no mere memory card could hold the three of us in one place. So that's just, we should be considering that for future shows, Timothy. Just, bigger memory cards for the three of us. How's that?
But
I like it. I like it.
terrifying.
Supersize us. So, but yeah, I mean, I think it is actually quite interesting to look back 2 weeks from the event when the dust is settled and what stood out for us. I mean, for me, it was meeting all these amazing people who I'd never met before in my booth. And, I talked about him, and I've released the episode now with Mike Hall of Anza, and he's the founder of Borrego, very storied energy entrepreneur, clean energy entrepreneur, founded Borrego in 2002 in San Diego. That was a really interesting interview. Released an interview with Amy Hart from Sunrun, the largest residential solar and storage installer. They're doing about 800 megawatts, I think,
Awesome.
this year.
Wow.
So they're doing about 10% of the residential solar installations in the United States. And Amy is a Midwesterner. She's from Milwaukee, so that was cool. She was very involved with MREA in its early years, the Midwest Renewable Energy Association, which is a lesser known organization outside of the Midwest, but they're OGs in clean energy. They were into solar thermal and wind, and now, of course, PV. And they have a beautiful campus there in Custer, Wisconsin, where they do a lot of NABCEP training. They have, this roof, this demo roof that's on the ground where they do lots of training for people who do rooftop solar, and a room full of all different inverters, so you can see all the different flavors of string inverters and micro inverters. So very cool. And what about you, John? What are a few things that stood out for you from RE?
Like Sean said, for me, it did take a tiny bit to get my bearings, to move around the floor better. Made me think that as this show's growing, I have to be more professional with how I approach it and how I get on the floor. I work half for PV Magazine when I'm out there, and I work half for myself. And it's only 2.5 days. There's 13. I did some math. So over 1,300 booths, you have essentially 20 hours on the floor. That's if you spend all day, 9 to 5, for 2.5 days. That's 65 booths an hour. That's, you can't just casually see 65 booths in an hour.
Right.
You can walk past them real fast, but that's not what we do. We're professionals. We work on this stuff. We got to know. So it means I got to work harder going to a conference. It's less a vacation, which is good because that means we got volume. At least this conference, I have to be more strategic. I know big companies, they just set big appointments and they just have people come to their booth. I'm at a different side of the game still, where I don't have big players coming to me yet. But seeing people was great. I had a cool interview with 3 Sun and their solar panel that halfway exists but halfway doesn't. It's going to break 25% in February. That's pretty cool. I spoke with Fluke. I spoke with several other groups. I spoke with an investment firm. Lots of great handshakes. Got to see you for a moment, Tim. Twice, multiple times we saw each other. And I don't know, it's a good conference. Other than the really terrible pillows, can nobody put a thin pillow in a hotel room? Do these all have to be like 3x thick pillows? I mean, come on, am I abnormal in liking a thin pillow?
I think so.
I
agree,
am.
totally. Yeah.
There we go. 2 out of 3. That's
Yeah.
it's done. Decision made. Thin pillows everywhere.
I like a medium pillow, firm. I don't like feather pillows. I don't like super mushy pillows, but too thin is no good either.
Yeah, sometimes I'll just go with no pillow. It's better for your neck.
Wow.
Wow,
That's
that is weird,
hardcore.
Sean.
lay on your back and get like a
That's
straight spine, sit up straight.
that's caveman territory.
Good.
I'd rather lay on a rock than no pillow.
You don't want to have a cervical kyphosis, you know.
I don't even know what that word means.
Yeah,
That
what
means
is
like
that?
going like
That
this.
sounds really gnarly.
Flexing forward. Yeah.
All right. So it was a good conference. Lots of people. It's growing. We're gonna keep doing better. I like the fact that the industry's growing. I spoke with Baywa. I'll have an interview with Baywa up in the next couple of days. We're listening to the guy at Baywa speak. It's like, wow, you guys are big players. You have a long game viewpoint. He was like they've got billions of dollars in interconnection fees in their project pipeline. Just interconnection fees in the billions. Absolutely something. It's just like, wow, that's a lot of interconnection stuff for you guys to consider. So lots of cool stuff.
You talked to Baywa's development arm?
Yeah, I have his name somewhere on a notepad, but yes, it was one of their developer guys. Yep.
'Cause they're a strange company because they also, they're a supply house. They sell
Yep.
solar equipment. They have a
Correct.
headquarters in New Mexico for that business. Then they have that development shop based in Southern California, and they have an O&M arm too, I think. But
Big company.
yep. Who else did I see? I saw Paul Grana at Helioscope. Got an interview with him. I still haven't looked at that content, so I don't know if that's going to get published. Hopefully it will. A lot of question marks about my interviews now that I had a few fails, but got to see Matt Campbell from Terabase, one of my favorite companies. They're chasing automation of construction. So they have a system for putting modules on torque tubes in a pop-up factory that they put on site on solar construction sites, and then they're taking modules off a conveyor belt. The robot puts them on the torque tube and mounts them to the torque tube, and then lifts that torque tube, which now weighs 1,000 pounds because it's full of solar modules, and puts it on a semi-autonomous vehicle. The coolest thing that Matt showed me is they've got a full platform for tracking the construction project, so they can see where all the vehicles are and what goes where, and pre-program the construction. So the vehicle or the vehicle driver, I mean, they have an autonomous vehicle, but today they're mostly semi-autonomous, meaning there is a driver in the vehicle. But the driver knows exactly where to go, right? There's just no question. The computer's telling it, okay, this is where that torque tube is going. And so they have a real-time monitoring system effectively for solar construction, which I think is going to be very interesting to EPCs, whether or not they embrace the robots. Just knowing what's going on your solar, site, I think is useful.
I'll agree with that.
Yeah. And spend some time with Erthos, the flat to earth solar is their moniker, and made some introductions for them to some independent engineers and other people that are interested in their product. That's a very controversial product, I will say. Everyone has an opinion. Like, people go, oh, interesting, or, oh, that's not going to work. But after talking with the Erthos folks, extensively now, I think there's a there. And Pinegate is one of the largest developers in the U.S. is doing a 100 megawatt project with that Erthos flat to earth. Did either of you visit the Erthos booth?
Yeah, there's a lot of activity there. It's pretty neat. There's just like completely like ground level solar.
Yeah.
All I was thinking is like, I hope the deer don't jump the fence, but otherwise it seems
They'll be
kinda
ice
neat.
skating on the solar panels.
Like special robots to clean it off, and
Yeah.
I visited the booth and I learned a few things that were neat. One, the robot's bigger than I thought. It's just the first time I saw it. Two, the robot and the package that they sell, they're sold in 2 megawatt chunks, and a robot's planned to clean 1 megawatt of the panels each night. It's charged remotely by the DC. 3, that 100 megawatt chunk of that 100 megawatt deal they announced. I think it's 100 megawatts in Mississippi. They could have had 180 megawatts in Mississippi. I can't remember. They had a couple of big announcements, but that project's going to have 50 little robots. And I would love to see a video at night, a drone video. Each robot has some lighting on it, so I would love to see a video of the robots just out there all cleaning at night with like lights on it or something. Somebody's gonna make a phone call and be like, "There's aliens on the solar panel farm, doing something with all these weird lights." I just thought it looked neat. When you purchase their hardware, you're purchasing some engineering, you're purchasing a production guarantee, you're purchasing robots. O&M for the robots. They have a special racking along the edge. It's concrete blocks. Then you have to buy metal chains of sorts, not chains, really metal wire to hold the modules down. But you do have to get custom solar modules or custom solar module frames because by the way, it's 100 megawatts of Erthos in Mississippi per one of our Facebook watchers. But the frames have little holes in them so that the Erthos cable can go through the frame edge. And so you do have to customize your modules a bit. So that might have an effect on pricing, availability, spot market stuff. But at 100 megs, you're not buying modules on the spot market.
What has to be customized about the module?
So
the cable goes through. Two cables go through both directions.
It's the frame. So it's the frame on the module. It's
got to have a frame, but all framed modules have frames. Like,
but the frame, their frames don't have holes in them. So they literally in the side part where it's a vertical, the 1 inch, you go across the side, you got to have holes in there, and so that's how you have to customize it right there. And it seems like Erthos is talking with all the big players for that. So I was, at the end of it, I was like, I know the density, that high energy density. Look at that. See, I knew it was a 180 megawatt project in Mississippi. That's a big deal. 180 megs in Mississippi.
I'm close to that project in Mississippi. That's a different project that I'm referring to. Pine Gate has a 100 megawatt project with Erthos, which was announced last year.
Wow.
But the Mississippi project is very interesting. It's a solar and storage project. That's really all I can say about it.
But you know stuff. Tim knows stuff. He's got an NDA. Ladies and gentlemen, Tim has an NDA.
The developer.
All right.
I'm excited that they're pursuing Erthos. I think that's a smart move because the kicker with Erthos is that they achieve a 20% reduction in LCOE, and that's eye-opening.
Well, but let's talk about what that is because it's pretty cool. One, massively lesser amounts of metal for racking, like all the metal, like steels, like tons
of steel per megawatt, John.
There you go. So 180 megs times 35, that's per megawatt. 180 times 35, that's 3,300. That's almost 7,700 tons of steel. 7,000, somewhere around there. Tons. That's a lot of steel.
And you're not moving around, so you don't have to buy it or move it around or put it in the ground. That adds up, right? So the construction is going to be faster and cheaper, and the question is, will it be as resilient when the panels are on the ground? They're going to get hotter, and they admit this because they don't have air blowing on the backside to remove the heat, right? And the critters are right there. And will the critters make the module or the wiring, have problems sooner than later? TBD, although they have a couple, they have like half a dozen plants that are operating now. Most of them are in California.
Yeah. Most of them are smaller.
Yeah, they're in the 1 to 5 megawatt range.
Yeah, I heard they're getting the gophers to make the wire runs, train the gophers. And
it's a great idea.
Through there. They pull them through. Yeah.
A little harness on those guys.
I'm big. Eddie, absolutely. Yeah. Feed them peanuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you just put a little chip in their head and remote control them.
Uh-oh. It's amazing. We got robots and
gophers.
Trained animals. And, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's interesting that Robert Sturble knows about this Erthos deal. But that's good. Good that people are taking notice. I mean, I love trackers, but when you talk to people about trackers also have problems, right? They stop tracking sometimes, and then you're losing energy. And, it's a grand experiment we're doing. But apparently, the interesting factoid that I learned by talking to Jim Tyler, the CEO of Erthos, is that when trackers came on the scene, they provided a 5% improvement in LCOE.
Mm-hmm.
And in something like 6 years, they went from a small percentage to 70% of the solar installations, utility scale solar installations. So that 5% bump in LCOE was a game changer for trackers. Now, Erthos is saying they can improve that by 20 over what trackers provide. So that is truly a game changer. And I think I think we're going to see a lot of Erthos until we're proven otherwise, right?
They can be put on a surface that is curved, I think up to 7 degrees. They were showing one of their projects. They had a little map, a layout, and I believe in the northwest corner you could see a curve on the ground for where the modules, and the robot can handle the curve as well for cleaning. So they can deal with that. Yeah, 20% is, it's just that they're different. That's it. It's different. Different is scary, and when we're dropping $100 million on different, you got to talk about Pine Gate, and they're doing a megawatt project. They're probably spending 70 cents per hour or per watt. That's $70 million that's going into this project.
And I think of a mound like a landfill. Many landfills are the shape of a mound, okay? You could put it on the south-facing side of a landfill because there's not a lot of up and down on a landfill. It's generally just like this big round hump. And I think the Erthos system, it's like a solar skin on the Earth.
That's a great way of saying it as you're talking about a landfill. That's great.
The thing that concerns people is like, well, nothing is going to grow underneath that. You're putting a parking lot down.
It's true.
And I'm like, you're right. Nothing but worms is going to grow underneath that. The worms are going to be super happy.
Yeah.
But you're only using half the space of a traditional tracker, so you're saving ground. In the greater scheme of things, you're saving some ground that, it could be dual use solar, but I think it's going to be a both and, right? I don't think Erthos is going to get traction in northern climates where there's a lot of snow.
You know what? I'll argue against that. Here's why. And because I'm working on it. So the northern climates with snow might have an evolved financial model and an evolved game. The reason Erthos doesn't do northern climates is because they used to offer a power production guarantee, where they guaranteed X amount of solar would be generated during the course of the year. That was their fundamental business plan. Now it's evolving. They have a put from KWH and Analytics so that the output can still be guaranteed, but it's no longer held on Erthos books. So it's changing. But with that, because Erthos offers this power production guarantee, they don't want to deal with anything like losing production days, like snow. So if you have snow on the thing for 3, 4, 5 days, Erthos is saying, hey, we're at risk. But as I was speaking with the owner of Erthos, I can't remember his name right now. I saw him at the booth. The founder. Well, then that was a different guy, because the guy.
Flanagan?
Different guy. Maybe I don't have no idea who the founder is. The gentleman does the work. He talks to me on LinkedIn. He does me proposals. I can picture his face right now. But
anyway, what did he say?
We were talking about this, and the idea was, well, if we could, as a developer, take on snow day risk, meaning let's say it's a snow day and we have 1, 2, 3 days. If we were to remove those days from the guaranteed output and just make the rest of the days guaranteed, the sunny ones, the non-snow days, then that meets the game. That covers the issue. And the issue is protecting the output guarantee, because everybody's worried. This is what it is. You're putting panels flat. We in the industry need to optimize. We have trackers. We follow the sun. And Erthos is the exact opposite philosophy. It's just some stuff on the ground going flat. Well, how do you go from the exact opposite of uber optimized tracking the sun to flat? You guarantee output. And so if you can guarantee the output, deal with the snow, that fixes the challenge. And so I have a feeling northern pieces of property will end up with some Erthos. Probably less, but some.
Yeah.
And perhaps they could have snow cleaning robots.
Yeah, I've thought of that too. I mean, there's no doubt that we humans use machines to clear snow off of surfaces like sidewalks and roofs for that matter. And you could make a robot that'll shovel the snow, at least most of it. Um, the question is, will the modules get damaged when you do that? But that's a question for the robo cleaners. I'm sure they're thinking of robo sweepers also. And good question from Joe Scharf about frost heave. There's really nothing that goes in the ground except around the perimeter where they build this curb around the array out of concrete block, and those blocks are attached to the ground with like stakes, I think. But otherwise, I don't think frost heave would affect an Erthos array because there's not piles in the ground. So,
And if the ground itself does shift a little, that's cool because the modules aren't locked into a spot. They can shift a little bit with the ground.
right.
So there's some flexibility.
Yep. All right. Let's talk about what else we saw at RE, and then maybe get into some current news that has happened in the last couple of weeks. I want to talk about the climate core that the Biden administration has launched. Interesting concept. Curious what you guys think about that. But what other take homes did you have? And I forgot to mention a couple. Quick shout out to. Let's see, Invinity Energy. They're a vanadium flow storage company. I did an interview with them. I did an interview with Lion Energy, which is going after residential storage now. There was a lot of storage companies. Lion, I know from mobile storage, like they make batteries for RVs and boats, but now going after the residential space. LG has launched a robust residential product. Very interesting. I have to say, it made me want it just talking with
Why?
them.
How come?
It's very modular. Yeah, just like very plug and play. I got the sense that it's like really they've really ironed out the system. And that's in the world of storage, that's the one complaint I hear from EPCs is like the integration is complicated, and it depends on who the company is. But even with Tesla, which is they integrate the equipment themselves, right? They're like end to end. They make the software, they make the hardware, they containerize everything. Whereas for most storage companies, there's like a third party integrator that puts the package together. And then the question is it all going to work? And is the finger pointing going to start? Because, you think you just interconnect it and flip the switch and boom, right? Well, turns out not so much, right? Like getting the battery to do exactly what it's designed to do and to shut off or turn on under very specific circumstances is not trivial. So I don't have any hands-on experience with LG, and obviously they've had their share of problems over the years, but anyway, they were there in force with their resi storage.
So have you guys heard of Bila Solar? That was a new one that came out. It was it's a company that was developed by Dr. Shi, the guy that founded Suntech, and he's been making some flat or some flexible PV modules, and so he calls it Sunman in different markets, but they made it Bila Solar in the U.S. market.
How do you spell that?
I think it's BILA.
BILA.
Solar.
Yep.
And they're making a factory in Indiana.
Yep.
And it's like, I think it's like a PVC layer with solar cells on it. One of those.
Okay, I remember we did talk about this at RE, right?
We did. I brought it up.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that they're doing is they're I think gluing it on top of a low slope roof, which is kind of interesting. And what else was just kind of randomly interesting, I was over there talking to them, is they put their booth right next to the Suntech booth. And so he was the, founded Suntech. It was the world's largest solar manufacturer somewhere around like 2008 and 9. And then the government took it back from them. I don't know how things work in China, or I don't want to know. And, but then they were kind of their next door neighbors. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought that module was interesting. It's really tall. It's over 7 feet long. It's over 4 feet wide. 19%. I'm reading off the article I wrote on it. 19% efficiency, 520 watts, and one thing that was cool, because they're so thin and lightweight, it's like literally it's quarter of an inch thick. You can fit 1,120 units in a 40-foot shipping container, which is 583 kW. So you can do half a meg, which is almost double a standard shipping container, which is more than double a standard shipping container. And I just thought that was kind of cool. You can just fit a whole bunch of them. You put 60 units on a single shipping container or a single pallet, and each one is 500. So that's like 30 kW per pallet. That seems pretty cool. That's just a lot of energy on a single pallet. I thought that was kind of
Yeah.
neat.
How many kW do you get in a container?
583. 583.44.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's double. I mean, shipping container 250 to 300 is awesome in my world. So doubling that with this product, which is neat.
And it's designed to be glued down? Like it's a
Yes.
peel and stick, or?
I think you just stick some glue underneath it and put it down on the roof.
Okay.
And their selling point, it's kind of like the Solyndra selling point. It's lightweight,
Yep.
and so there's a lot of roofs that you can't put solar on because
Yeah.
they can't take the weight, and so you could just stick this stuff on it.
It makes me think that there's an Erthos competitor here.
I mean, you could potentially put these modules on the ground, but they'd be even closer to the roof than standard modules because these things are flat and thin. There's nothing to hold them up. So you'd want, at least the frame holds up the Erthos or an Erthos module from the land.
Well, yeah, you'd have to glue it to something, but you could glue it to,
Plywood.
yeah, maybe something like that. I don't know if
Glue it
plywood
to
can
earth.
hold up.
Glue
Get
it to
yourself
earth.
some earth glue. Yeah. Let's put it on top of Half Dome. That's some good. That'll stick to that.
Some Gorilla Glue. Just Gorilla Glue everywhere, right?
Yeah, some granite. Stick it to some granite. But yeah, it was kind of cool. And I've seen them developing it too before when it was called Sunman. When I went to the SNEC conference in 2019, in fact. Yeah.
Oh, so they've been around for a few years, huh?
Yeah, they just kind of rebranded it for the U.S. and I think they were more developing it at that time.
Oh, founded in 2014. Yeah.
But Bila Solar is like the new name. So if you looked up Sunman, that was Dr. Shi. Do you remember Dr. Shi? He was kind of famous back then. He was on the cover of the magazines and all that. I think he was like the richest guy in China at the time.
Nice.
And Suntech was just like growing like crazy, number one manufacturer in the world. And
he came out of that Australian lab that is that's still the originator of PERC technology, as well as TopCon.
University,
right?
New South Wales. Yep. Yeah. Him and Martin. He studied under Martin Green. So.
Martin Green. Yeah. I heard an interview with Martin Green recently on the.
Yeah, I did too. Or something.
There was a podcast. I can't remember the name of the show, but I think
this
it's
is the only one that matters.
Bloomberg's podcast.
Yeah.
Or Bloomberg's. It's called Zero or something like that, right?
Yeah, Martin gave me a solar award at the SNEC conference in 2019. Wow. He was handing them out. Yeah.
Wow.
So
that's cool, man.
Yep.
So you met Martin?
Yeah, I've met him a few times. I remember hanging out with him in South Africa at a conference over there a number of years ago. But he kind of does a lot of the international stuff. And I'm good friends with the lady that owns SNEC, and so I go to her dinners and things like that. And they all those people kind of hang out. Yeah.
SNEC? What is SNEC?
SNEC is the world's largest solar conference. I think they had about 300,000 people at this more recent one, and it's in Shanghai. It stands for, I think, Shanghai New Energy Corporation. Okay. But it's huge. They have like this hugest convention center. It's like RE plus, and they actually do work with the RE plus people, and they kind of coordinate with different international conferences. I think like they were doing something together with Solar Power Mexico and some different things. And
I've heard
but
about that conference. It's no game.
Yeah, it's like in between all these conference calls, you could land like a big airplane, and they fill them all up. It's insane. It's like so many miles. I mean, it's like if you wanted to see all the booths there, instead of like 65 booths per hour, you'd probably be like 1,000 booths an hour or something like that. I mean,
Do they let you ride scooters around, or how do you get around such a big place?
you just wear good shoes and have sore feet, I think, and you don't see everything. And they have like the scientific conference too, and they have like these fancy dinners and all this kind of stuff. But it was pretty fun. Yeah.
So you've been to that how many times, Sean?
Probably like about 6 or 7 times.
Wow.
I've been going since, I don't know, like 2000. I probably went like 2008 or 9 or something like that, or no, like maybe 9 or 10, something like that.
And are you doing training in Asia as well?
I have off and on, but they like to get stuff for free. It's kind of hard to do the whole lot of training there. But I've done some classes there, and like I've done some at the SNEC conference, and I did one for Photon magazine one time over in Shanghai, which was kind of cool. So.
By the way, Sean, we're signed up for your training course with Rochelle. She's our project manager, office manager, do all kinds of stuff manager. And we have a training set for her so she can get her technical sales. I don't know, maybe the intro one. There's an intro boot camp first, or an intro thing, and then a second level we may work toward. So thank you for
awesome.
following up really quickly at the show. I can't remember the gentleman's name that reached out, but he was fast.
Oh, probably Brian Hayden, probably?
Brian, yes, it was Brian.
Yeah,
so
good guy.
Brian reached out, had lots of good data, answered Rochelle's questions, helped her get logged in. We have like a company portal now, so I guess I can track everybody and make sure they do their homework. And,
it's important.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Don't want anybody slacking. People sign up for a class and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I'm working on it," and they're not. So.
Liars.
Yeah.
But so we are signed up. So hopefully it's cool. I'll let you know how Rochelle likes it, and
and you get to go at your own pace, and then you get a whole year's access, and you can always extend that, and you can watch videos over and over again. I have trouble doing that with live in-person trainings, like Rewind. It doesn't work too well. So when you're talking to somebody, I love the platform. Love working with HeatSpring.
Well, if she's going for PV technical sales, she'll have to take my course as well.
Yeah, she's probably in there, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know which one she's taking. I think
she's probably starting with the associates.
I think that's what you signed us up for, Sean, was the associates first, and then we're going to go toward the technical sales as we figure it out and get used to it. So learning, It's cool to see. That'd be 2 people within us who have a NABCEP certification. That'd be very nice. And we're just hiring an inside sales guy recently. So maybe I'll make him take a class, but I don't want to make him take any classes. He's a new guy. We'll see.
Yeah, I make all these practice exams, which help people pass their NABCEP exams. So that helps a lot too. And I answer every question every day and have a lot of fun. So fun and learning. It makes you remember stuff.
All right, well, let's dig into the news, boys. I want to talk about the Biden administration launching the Climate Corps. This is on Utility Dive, and this is, a week old now. White House launches Clean Energy Youth Workforce Program amid labor shortage concerns. And, I'm fond of saying that humans are the limiting factor in the clean energy transition, or a major limiting factor, not the only limiting factor. Interconnection queues are a major limiting factor. Getting our utilities to wake up and smell the coffee that they have to change or die, and one way or another they're gonna change and get with the clean energy transition. There is a good story, by the way. I don't know if you guys saw that, about the 25 utilities that are going after it, so to speak. So in Canary Media, maybe we'll get to that later. But this Climate Corps is a great idea, right? I mean, we have the Peace Corps. We have the Peace Corps. We have a Teach for America, which is an educational corps, basically, right, for getting youth involved in education in inner cities. across the country. And now we have the Climate Corps, which is encouraging
Marine
young people
Corps,
to, well, 20,000
Space Corps.
people is their goal, right?
Yeah.
In 1 year, putting 20,000 Americans to work in conservation and clean energy. I think that's a wonderful idea, because I think that in our educational system, the trades, for one thing, are neglected. And so people don't think so much about that. They think about going to college, where they learn a bunch of stuff that's not very useful, generally speaking. I went to college for way too long. I know full well about that. And so this will encourage people to go potentially straight out of high school, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of is like how people are talking about we need to do a full-on mobilization like World War II to, fight the war on CO2, that bad molecule. And so this is kind of like doing that, the corpse. It sounds kind of almost military-like.
Yeah, we had the Civil Conservation Corps back during the Depression in the late 20s and early 30s, and they did a bunch of good things. They built a bunch of facilities at national parks around the country, right? It put unemployed men mostly to work, and so it was a floor. It gave people paying jobs, building infrastructure that benefit all Americans, and that's the idea here, is that we'll put young Americans to work working on the energy transition. And we need more workers in the energy transition. We need 1 million new electricians, and some fraction of those people that go through the Climate Corps will, go on to very successful careers in clean energy. Maybe you can hire them, John.
Well, as soon as I saw it, I submitted our company that we would be willing to host workers and that we'd be interested in it. So yes, I have an interest in it. I'd like to see how it works, what it would cost, how we can manage it, because having a person as on your team means you have to take care of that person. You have to give them work. You have to not waste their existence. And we have to make sure that we are organized well enough to take on the responsibility of young workers. And so that matters to me, is being able to deliver. And also, if you have people that are motivated, they're also going to do better work on their own and just chase stuff. So that'll be probably a positive of this particular type of people that are going. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think we want to train more. I would love to get involved in training electrical apprentices. I think as a GC for some of our projects, we're at some point going to be required to have an apprentice program inside of us once we break 4 employees. And so I like the idea of it. I hope they do it. 20,000 people working in the industry is just a start. And if there's any sort of federal support for the wage, for the base salary, then I'm all in.
Yeah. Good paying jobs doing good things for the environment and human health. It's a win-win. All right, well, let's talk about solar panel manufacturing. I heard a webinar yesterday with Clean Energy Associates on PB Magazine, or sponsored by PB Magazine, and we're going to talk about your story here, John, that you wrote in PB Magazine on this topic. But in that webinar, they point out that there's now potentially 60 gigawatts of panel factory activity in the U.S. by 2027, 2030, something like that. So a lot of activity. They cautioned listeners that it's going to be some fraction of that. That's the upper limit. They think it might be closer to 60. But they had this amazing chart, and I don't know what this chart is called, but it's like curved lines that connect dots, and they were tracking the process from silicon to wafer to cell to module, and how convoluted it is and very difficult to know, if it's not spelled out explicitly in the BOM of a module, where particular components came from. And what this is all about is trying to get that 10% adder on the ITC for made in America equipment, right? So anyway, that was interesting. But what's the story that you wrote for PV Magazine? A terawatt of solar module capacity expected within 16 months.
So, new hardware, new manufacturing facilities available only in China, or no, only by large Chinese manufacturers. So this doesn't include First Solar, Meyer Burger, other groups like that. So Chinese manufacturers will break at the end of this year. So we're talking like 3 months, gentlemen. Will break 860 gigawatts of capacity, and next year, this is just modules. Next year they'll break a terawatt, and so by the
It says
end of
2025 here, right?
yeah,
Oh,
but
I see, with the all-in.
yeah, so by
global.
end of 2024 they'll break the terawatt is the projection.
Wow, a terawatt a year?
Yes, sir.
Wow, I thought that was supposed to be 2030. That's nice.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We got bored with that. We got
I know. I was bored. Yeah.
500 megs. That's so 2024. Let's let's
So yeah, just to put that in perspective, all the solar installed from beginning to time until like mid last year was 1 terawatt.
yeah
Now it's going to be a terawatt a year next year. Like
a year. Sean, you need to get into development. We need you in the development side. The training is important though, so we might have to keep you there. You're gonna have to get bigger. You have to train more people, Sean. Can you do this?
okay, well, I got it. It's all online. I could handle it.
Good.
I could do the whole 20,000 in the corpse.
Done. Do them all on Thursday if you could.
Yeah.
Next Thursday.
It'll be done. Been taken care of.
20. Yeah, it's just a terawatt, dude. And this is just the Chinese manufacturers. It's mostly TOPCon. So it looks like China has chosen TOPCon as its product du jour. There's a lot of other technologies. Polysilicon capacity, even it's very complex for polysilicon, but polysilicon capacity is going to be like 3 terawatts, 2 terawatts, 4 terawatts of capacity by like 2027. So, and there's, complications in that market. The price just, chopped by 2/3, went from almost $40 a kilogram down to like 10. So it's chopped by 3/4, something like that. But now factories aren't opening as quickly as they were announced, and we're starting to see the market respond. But still, nonetheless, we're going to have before 2026 a terawatt. We might have it before the end of next year, a terawatt. Now, there's another gentleman who's from Exawatt. I believe they're a consultancy firm. He messaged me and he said, in terms of total capacity, we might have already been above a terawatt. However, it wasn't necessarily newish capacity. It was product that's a little older, lines that just don't run as much. And so we do have capacity. And I think that was a key thing that Jenny Chase from Bloomberg told me about. She goes, John, just because we have a terawatt of capacity doesn't mean we're going to install it. It's a regular thing to expect that the utilization of these lines might be 50%, might be 45, might be 60. So, be
so
tempered.
Those bar graphs are capacity.
Oh, so that would be like 24/7 operation then?
Not 24/7. Yeah, yes. So when you look at the first, if you scroll up, that right there is capacity. So that's if not 24/7, but there's enough machines in place to do a terawatt. So it's not saying there will be a terawatt installed. Nobody's predicting that yet. Next year, the predictions are for like 500 gigs. This year, near 400 plus. So next year, maybe we'll have 500-600 gigs installed. Maybe 2027 is the earliest I've seen anybody predict 1 terawatt of capacity actually deployed in the year. Mm-hmm. But this is capacity.
So like with 1 terawatt of capacity, that doesn't mean they're making a terawatt of solar modules?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Right.
So that means they have the factories to do it. If the demand is there, they'll do it. They have the machines. And, that's pretty close. I mean, recently the machines have been running 80-90% capacity utilization, so pretty heavy. But now we're going into a massive expansion period, as you can see. We're doubling over the course of this past year to the end of this year. And during that doubling, there's less than perfect efficiency. The world evolves as it goes through these aggressive moves. But it's going to be there, and it's why the price of solar panels have collapsed. And I actually have a story on that from PV Mag just to show. But the price of solar panels, international pricing has collapsed to 15 cents a watt, 16 cents a watt. Just a year ago, it was 40 coming out
What's
of
the cost
China.
to make the solar panels?
10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Like there's some, the people at the low end are getting squeezed. The people in the middle are holding their margins. The people selling it at 20, 25, they're making some money. But the price of polysilicon has fallen significantly, and that's the main driver of solar panel pricing, beyond demand, of course.
And then we have tariffs.
Yeah, and that's a whole other thing for the U.S. So our pricing is always higher than everyone else.
Yeah. Because we care about those people that are manufacturing this stuff. Yeah.
Well, tariffs don't really help.
Let's talk about this related story, John, because this is
Yeah.
very related. This is the story you found in PV Tech. North America has $12 trillion on the table for renewables generation and grids.
Yeah.
I'm putting this on screen now. According to DNV, what exactly is that story, though?
So DNV is just modeling, looking forward, what's changing in the United States for grid upgrades, for generation. The report's based in transmission and generation. I mostly, of course, looked at the solar portion of it because that's what I care about. But 12 trillion to be spent by 2050. Half of the money is scheduled to go into the generation side of things. And if you look at the solar number, they state that approximately, what's the solar number?
Trillion.
Yeah, 2.3 trillion of solar and 1.6 trillion of wind by the and with solar becoming the main generation technology in the mid 2030s, and almost half of North America's power consumption. And power consumption also takes into account that we're transferring a lot of things from energy into electricity for use there, versus now when we have transportation, heating, and or at least heating being done by gas. So half of power consumption by 2050, pure solar. So we have, 2.3 trillion. We got 20 years, 25 years. I guess that's 100 billion a year of solar, roughly. Super roughly. Not bad. Not bad. So that's that. I just thought it was a cool big number, and I like DNV reports. Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, it says by 2050 they expect LCOE to be $20 a megawatt hour. 36 cents for PV and storage. Yeah. That's 2 cents a kWh. $20 a megawatt hour is 2 cents a kWh. And that's what Jim Tyler at Erthos said is kind of the holy grail. Like once you get down in that 2 cent range, then electricity's cheap enough to use it for green hydrogen or other industrial processes. You could you could power a heat battery like Rondo does. All right.
I like the big reports that show the big fat numbers because it keeps me motivated to some degree, because it's like, all right, I can pay my bills and I'm in a big industry that's going to generate a lot of revenue, and all I need is a little tiny piece. So it gives me like, I can grow as a human being and as a business person. So that's why I like those big fat headline numbers. They look cool.
Well, talking about a fat number, Michael Bloomberg has donated $500 million to close all U.S. coal plants. And this is not the first time he's donated a big lump of cash. I think this is a very interesting
a big
phenomenon.
lump of coal.
That's right. It's way better than a big lump of coal. Let me put this on screen. But there is a concept floating around in the interwebs about we could just buy out the fossil fuel industries for some few trillions of dollars. It's a surprisingly small number. I don't know what that number is off the top of my head, but this is what Bloomberg is pointing to, that we can actually accelerate the closure of all the remaining coal plants in the United States for some price tag, and he's putting $500 million into that cause. I don't know if somebody is agreeing to match that or what, but
yeah, I'll do it. Yeah.
Okay, great. I appreciate that, Sean. and he had previously given, I think, an equal amount to the Sierra Club. and to their initiative on shutting down coal plants. And yeah, they're Beyond Coal campaign. So maybe this is just a repeat gift to the same campaign. I'm not sure, but the long and short of this is that it works. It's like, yeah, when there's a bit of a carrot for grid operators to just say, yeah, we'll give us a carrot and we'll shut those things down. They're expensive to operate, and we can transition our assets to coal. I mean, to wind, solar, and battery storage, and save money and make our investors a greater profit in the long run. So what do you guys think about this?
What's kind of funny there is the banner ads and stuff are from ExxonMobil on that article that you're showing.
I know that is a little ironic. We're on the Reuters website here.
But yeah, it seems that like coal just doesn't pay either, and it's just kind of dying, and it's just making it happen faster. I am in Colorado right now. We were driving around yesterday, and we went past a coal plant, and I think they were shutting them down, but there was one left, and then there's all these coal cars and stuff. And being from where I'm from California, it's kind of unusual to see a coal coming through on a coal train. My kind of coal train is a Johnny Coltrane.
What is that?
Johnny Coltrane. He's a saxophone player.
Yeah, it took me a moment. Sorry, I'm a little slow. I'm not as fast as everyone else.
Yeah, it's probably the coal in the air even.
Yeah.
It kind of does that stuff.
Yeah, Johnny Coltrane is trying to figure, what's that? Sounds cool. But yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, it is.
Apparently,
I was going to say
150 coal plants remaining in the U.S. And so this is going to accelerate the closure of those, and also help to prevent the additional construction of gas plants. So I'm glad there's a billionaire who takes climate change seriously. I wish Elon would get in the game and make some gifts like this. I know he made $100 million gift, right, for the Carbon Capture X Prize. So he's not completely on the sidelines, but he could do more.
Yeah, that coal's some nasty stuff. Like especially when you go to these other countries too, where it's like really bad and it's still growing and all that. It's kind of crazy.
What do you mean it's growing? Oh, where they're building coal plants? Yeah.
Yeah, I think aren't they building
like India and China are still building coal plants?
Yeah. Like,
and India has a huge amount of coal reserves natively.
India's teetering. India's teetering on maybe peaking. Who knows? It's complex for those countries. They're still electrifying. I mean, they still have tens or hundreds of millions of people who don't have electricity, and they got to figure out how to take care of the population. China's evolving quickly. They're building a lot of coal facilities, but there's also a low capacity factor every day. Every day it's getting lower for their coal stuff. So it's a complex mix there. And with even us, the coal plants that are still in place and burning, the average capacity factor of the coal fleet has both the capacity has dropped, but the capacity factor has dropped as well. So not only are there are fewer machines burning coal, the machines that are left burning are running less. It's down to like 55%, the coal fleet capacity factor. I saw this a couple of years ago. So I would guess that at minimum they're similar or lower than then, because I know total coal usage is now in the 10 to 15, 12 to 17% of U.S. electricity range. And that's down below 20, which was last year, which was like this big number. I remember that one coal guy who, one of my favorite people to dislike, he said, grandmother is going to die on the operating system if coal drops below 30. And coal's at like
Joe Manchin? Who are you talking about?
No, it's Jim Murray, the guy that died. The guy that tried to keep black lung coverage from his workers and tried to kill the fund, and then got black lung and then applied for the fund. So dude, I just want to say mean things that I shouldn't say because someday somebody, it's like
that's pretty dark.
Yeah, dude, how mean is that? I mean, hey, you can't do that. Oh man, well, all right, it's the standard Sorry, Tim. Another story,
we
different
got
day.
to wrap up the show, gentlemen. I really appreciate you both being here.
Oh, look at that.
Check out all of our content at cleanpowerhour.com. Give us a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And reach out to us on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. John is easy to find. Sean is easy to find. But how can our listeners find you, Sean White?
At solarshawn.com, and that's spelled the correct way, S-E-A-N, solar, S-E-A-N.com.
Excellent.
You got all the other links over there. Yep.
And Mr. Commercial Solar Guy, how can our listeners find you?
Just type commercial solar guy into Google, into any search engine. You will find me near the top. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. All the websites.
You gave up on Mastodon?
I check it. I check Mastodon. I don't post on Mastodon as much. Sorry about that.
I didn't think it could fly. It's just too much, right? You can't. There's only so many social channels you can tackle. But
that is me. Only so much.
All right. Well, I'm Tim Montague. Let's grow solar and storage. Thanks so much, guys, and thanks you for listening.
John. Thanks.